consent is different from age of marriage. Kasi maraming, di ba, iba-ibang culture, even in the Philippines. So in some instances, may mga bata na as early as 9 years old, pwede na nga silang ipa-marry off to other families, yung buya, di ba, yung buya, arranged marriages. So matawag pa rin silang child marriages, pero yung mga laws, they vary on the age wherein sexual relations can begin. But we know that generally, yung mga girls who marry as children, they still live a disadvantaged life. So they will drop out of school, madalas nahihiya, at dahil kailangan nila mag-alaga ng bata, and they have lesser chances to return to school at ipagpatuloy yung kanilang pag-aaral. Although marami na rin namang ginagawa yung DepEd na they really reach out to those nag-drop out sa school. Pero sa ngayon, with the pandemic, mas lalong naging mahirap yung ganyang mga setup. And itong mga child marriages na to, they're more likely to have pregnancy and birth-related complications. And also mortality. Posibleng madali silang mamatay. Hindi pa kasi ready yung kanilang katawan. At saka yung rapid repeat, they're likely to give birth to more children than women who marry older. And abortion is still illegal in the Philippines. Tapos, ang mga minors natin, ito pa yung concept ng parental consent para maka-access sila sa contraceptives. So, kasama pa rin yun sa na-find out din namin sa with this project na ito ay isang somehow naging barrier, yung parental consent. Na ang dami, tumataas talaga yung teenage pregnancies, pero itong mga kabataan, they couldn't access contraceptives easily kasi kailangan din ng parental consent at nagkakaroon ng hiya, ganyan, nahihirapan. So we hope that the passing of this bill increases the age of consent. It could also have an impact to the social emergency na na-report nga ng PAPCOM this year. Sabi pa nga ng PAPCOM na, about 40 to 50 girls between the ages of 10 to 14, they give birth every week. Ang dami niyan. Or about 2,600 young girls get pregnant every year. So, parang it's really a social emergency, a teenage pregnancy. Alright. So, more on consent. We have this GIF also from UN. No? Maybe it's not consent. Ang pagpayag mo noon, yung past consent, is not consent now. So, yan. So, lawmakers and women organizations argue that raising the age of consent, sana makadagdag siya na bumaba yung teenage pregnancy natin. Kasi yung sexual activity with individuals below 16, yun nga, matawag na siya as statutory rape. At pangalawa, yung COVID-19 pandemic, and nasa bahay lang, school from home, it made children more vulnerable to sexual abuse and exploitation kung ang kanilang exploiters and perpetrators are with them. Sabi pa ng Salinlahi Alliance for Children's Concerns, they said this na yung isang 12-year-old na bata, he or she cannot in any way properly discern abuse and consequently cannot adequately defend herself or himself from such. So sana magkaroon ng higher age of consent and therefore will help protect Filipino children from sexual predators na posibleng lalapit sa kanila whether in person or online. And sana rin we must continue to provide spaces for such conversations, mapag-uusapan natin yung mga bagay na ito and share our perspectives para sa kanilang future. It will help young people broaden their horizons. Actually, lumabas din sa study namin na madalas kasi sa kabataan, yung YOLO, they only live for the moment. Marami sa kanila hindi na naiisip yung ano yung future nila, what will happen next. So, sana we need our children to develop this critical thinking and not just follow na don't have sex and you will be okay mindset. Kasi parang kulang yan. There's really a gap in that mindset. Alright. And what we can also do, FYI lang, for your information, na ang short shorts is not the problem. Ang short shorts aren't the problem. At saka yung mga women, yung mga babae, they also deserve, we deserve that freedom that men have to choose what we want to wear sans the consequences. So instead of victim blaming or slut shaming, we must address the problem directly by educating the men and women, kasama yung auntie ko, in our lives about consent and safe space. So we've been chasing kasi a band-aid solution na that's never worked before in the first place. So parang band-aid lang, pero hindi naman talaga yung solution pa. There's also nothing wrong about attempting to help women feel good about themselves, yun na, self-expression. It's also kasi maganda pang legs, or show off the way they dress, by creating safer spaces for them to express themselves. Kasi women also deserve the freedom, and pwede silang maglakad sa mga streets na they feel safe, and yun, as they grow up, they feel safe and don't suffer anymore these consequences na sana naman ay na-avoid. But do mind na meron din namang mga places na may dress codes and codes of conduct. So, for example, wearing shorts or wearing skimpy clothes on the beach is fine kasi nasa beach ka naman. Pero if you're at school at nakasaad naman talaga, di ba, dyan sa USeP may nakasaad dyan sa gate, yung dress code, or at work, or pati sa church, no, it's already a different story, di ba? Yun na yung mga concept of what is proper. Kasi may pinag-agrihan na rin naman ano yung dress code. So, eto, dito na lang sa chat box natin sa Zoom. Ano naman yung safe space to you? Ano yung concept nung what is safe space? Actually, napag-usapan na rin naman natin earlier. Ano nga ba yung safe space? Kasi when we talk about consent, we were also talking about safe space. Sorry. Nauna ko. Okay, I will look in the chat box. Not saying no. Yun pa yung nakita ko. So, what is safe space to you? Ano ba yung concept ng safe space? Outer space? What is safe space po para sa inyo? Anybody home? Freedom from any forms of harm. Yes, thank you. When you feel safe and secure. Thank you. A space where you feel uncomfortable and secure. Feel comfortable and secured. An environment that does not judge. An area where one has no fear of being themselves, yes. And being able to express myself without any harm or danger. Yes, thank you very much sa inyong mga sagot. Meron pa ba? Yan. Thank you very much sa inyong mga sagot. So, I guess you can still key in your answers to my question, but I will move on to my next slide. Alright, thank you. So, yung safe space, ito, I also found this on the net. Itong inverted pink, fuchsia pink triangle at nasa loob ng isang green circle, yan daw ay symbol ng safe space. So, yan, it's a definition, no, by Merriam-Webster. But safe space, yung konsepto ng safe space, it dates back to the late 20th century. Yung mga women's movement, no, nagsimula ito. Pero, posible sa panahon ngayon, it has been used in many different contexts. So, sa historical and merong tinatawag na historical and contemporary safe spaces, may tinatawag na separatist safe spaces daw in women's, yung mga anti-racist at saka feminist communities. Meron din yung inclusive daw na safe space, such as in classrooms. So, ang gusto lang ding iparating dito is, yung safe space, it should be understood na hindi siya static daw and a contextual notion between safe or unsafe. So parang may binary. So rather, through the relational work of cultivating them. And we should also note, according to Rosestone Collective, ito yung paper, Safe Space Towards a Reconceptualization. Yung safe space daw is never completely safe. Oh, kasi kahit may ganyan, we still encourage yung critical cultivation of safe space as a site for negotiating differences and challenging oppression. Kasi merong iba naman na, safe space, hindi na ako pwedeng magsalita din ng aking dissent. No? So, it's continually a negotiated space. A safe space is also a negotiated space. So, yung understanding natin ng safe space, it is actually inherently paradoxical. So, yung cultivating them includes foregrounding yung social differences and binaries between safe, what is unsafe, or inclusive, exclusive, at saka yung recognize natin yung there's a thin porous line between these binaries. And we also need to renegotiate yung binaries na kasi it's necessarily incomplete kasi ito nga, it's never completely safe, and we have to continually negotiate yung differences at saka challenging oppression. Otherwise, one group may tend to overpower another. So yun, oppression na rin ang tawag doon. Now we have this attorney, director kanina discussed this, Attorney Villardo, yung Safe Spaces Act. So sabi pa nga in an article that I read, safe spaces follow persons, so whether you are in a private or public space, a place. So you have a safe, inviolable space around your body that can only be entered with your consent, online or offline. But I know you are all aware na actually a top government advisor on regional gender and governance, si Socorro Reyes pa, during the 11th State of the Presidency Forum sa UP Diliman noong July, sabi niya na itong panahon na ito, there's no other time that women have been subjected to shaming, humiliation, harassment with immunity and impunity by a sitting president than now. So indeed, alam natin and we are aware na he has made many, di ko na mabilang, tingnan lang natin sa news, many controversial remarks about women which many groups find to be misogynistic or sexist. And recently, this week lang din, actually this morning ko nabasa, yung Commission on Human Rights also called out about these sex jokes as insulting to women and should instead focus on making the government's typhoon relief and recovery efforts more inclusive. So, it's wrong. Diba? So, sexual harassment indeed can occur anytime, anywhere, and to anyone. So, it's common as the cold, no? It's as common as the cold, sabi pa. Hopefully, hindi siya mag-lead to COVID. And also, sexual harassment constrains women's freedom of movement, both in terms of status and place. Lack of freedom of movement in space causes lack of freedom of movement in status. Sabi ng social philosophy today, this is also the virus of this crime. It comes in many forms, like sexism, power relations, psychological factors, moral and cultural values. Pero it also depends on each situation, kasi each case is nevertheless a violation of human rights. At saka, pati nga yung language that we use, they can also perpetuate sexual harassment. Actually, I remember one student, sabi niya na, yung word na chicks, sabi niya, ginagamit niya ang word na chicks, o chicks kaayo, pag maganda daw, good looking, no? Yung good looking lang na mga females. At sabi ko sa kanya, na yung analogy kasi ng mga chicks at saka cats, Ito yung mga tiny little words na most often wrongly used, na it gets into the subconscious. Kasi di ba yung chicks, young chickens, very helpless. So they become the prey for the predator cats. No? Bihira lang naman siguro paglaruan ng cats ang chicks. Kasi predator talaga. So the chicks become the prey for the predator cats to snack on, and then there goes gender violence. And then according also to the Philippine Council of Women, yung violence against women, it also serves as men's expression of control over women in order to preserve their power. So, ang Philippines, it ranks 8 worldwide in gender equality based on the 2018 Global Gender Gap. It also shows na yung traditional roles in the Philippine society, we still expect men to be the leaders and providers, and women to be their nurturers and supporters. Pero for as long as these mindsets dominate, yung mga babae, women are seen as existing solely to serve men. Magsisilbi lang ba? So with this mindset kasi, the Filipinas risk living in a society that allows men to view women as objects for their use, so objectifying women, rather than as autonomous human beings worthy of respect. So in 2017, we have this NDHS, so yung National Demographic and Health Survey. Ayan, makikita nyo dito sa infographics yung several forms of violence against women and children. Madalas na spousal violence by husbands dahil na hubog sila, na sobraan og inom. So back then in 2017, the numbers are already alarming. So last year actually, may data na obtain ang PSA. Ito, if you can follow this news sa Business Mirror. And Business Mirror got their data also from our government agencies. The PSA obtained data from the PNP and the SWD, and it shows this number of cases of violence against women and children and GBV. So shortly increasing. At saka mas lalo na ngayon nga nagkaroon na ng pandemic, ito mas tumaas talaga. Kasi in 2019 nasa 2,162 rape cases. Pagdating nung February 2020, naging 16,000 physical injury cases. Pero itong nakasulat sa Inquirer, simula nung nag-lockdown, there's over 3,600 cases of violence against women reported. Pero I think hindi pa ito complete din ang data. And kanina na din, first off na pinakita ni Ma'am Lorna, yung sa Davao City lang na data, it's also increasing. And even if alam natin na it's very possible na many are still unreported kasi hindi nga makalabas, hindi makareport. So, saan na ba tayo lulugar? So, where do we go from here? Sabi pa nga ng asawa ko, so it starts from the home. Sino bang nagpapantalon sa atin? Sabi niya. Sino bang nagpapantalon sa atin? Sabi ko sa isip ko, nagsusuot din naman ako ng pantalon I do wear pants and skirts and shorts too. And dresses, di ba? But we still have a long way to go. But we are getting there. Dahan-dahanin na natin. We re-educate the men and women in our lives. So a woman's place can be anywhere. Women do go to many places during the day and even at night. So not just in sex work, but to work in night establishments, doing night shifts or any worthwhile work where she's needed. Mga health workers natin, mga frontliners. Women work hard indeed, and hoping later that she can also break the glass ceiling, the proverbial glass ceiling. So in many places, women are rising up and demanding safety, respect, and inclusion in public spaces and coming together to make it happen. So actually marami ng organizations also around the world helping women to claim their space. So we can use our voices to advocate, to raise awareness among each other, also with young girls, kung saan ba sila pwedeng pumunta, at saka how we can live without violence, discrimination, at saka i-insult, no? Without being insulted. So we encourage women, the ladies, the girls, to play a greater role also in decision making and designing a gender sensitive public policies. So this also one part of the story. And I'd also like to share na ito yung this is a very useful tool also, or reminder from the UN Women, na ending violence against women is everybody's business. So sabihin na rin natin na GBV in general, it's everyone's business. And UN Women offers us this 10 ways where you can make a difference safely and impactfully. So the first one is listen to and believe in survivors. Okay. Listen to and believe in survivors, kasi when a woman shares her story of violence, it's her first step of breaking the cycle of abuse. Mahirap kaya na magsalita, no? Sabihin kung ano yung nangyari. So, we must believe in the survivor and give her the safe space that she needs to speak up and be heard. Pakinggan natin. So, wala kasi yun sa clothes, wala yun dahil siya ay nalasing, or yung sexuality, they are irrelevant. Yung perpetrator is the sole reason for the assault, and he or she must bear the responsibility alone. So we should continue to call out victim blaming and counter the idea na it's on the women, dahil kasalanan ng babae, at dapat sila daw ay mag-avoid sa situations that might be seen as dangerous by traditional standards. This way, yung mga survivors of violence are speaking out more and than ever before, and everyone has a role to play to ensure that they can have justice. Huwag daw natin sabihin na, bakit hindi siya umalis? No? Bakit hindi siya umalis? Ang sabihin natin is, we hear you, we believe you, we stand with you. Narinig ka namin, niniwala kami sa'yo, and we stand with you. Next is, we must teach the next generation and learn from them. The children of today. So we must set them examples, and hopefully it will also shape the way they think about gender, respect for human rights. And we start conversations, usap tayo about gender roles early on. Ano ba yung mga roles? Kasi merong mga traditional gender roles, and we are starting to challenge those traditional gender roles. Ano ba yung characteristics assigned to men? Babae ganito lang, lalaki ganito rin. So we must point out these stereotypes na the children constantly encounter, whether in the media, on the street, in the school, and even at home. And let them know na it's okay to be different. So sana ito yung culture of acceptance and yung safe space na sinasabi natin. At saka, ayun, we also talk about consent, yung they have body autonomy, at saka teach them also accountability, both for children, for boys and girls. At saka ito yung call for responses and services fit for purpose, para ito sa mga survivors. Sana mabigyan sila ng mga essential services. So, we will offer them, kanina na-flash din kung saan na yung mga hotlines na pwedeng tawagan, where they can get counseling and all the support for the survivors. Next is yung understand consent. Yes, you are right dun sa mga sagot nyo kanina na it should be freely given, may mutual understanding, at saka yung ito, enthusiastic consent. Hindi ka sure na consent kasi parang may halong takot yon. So, it should be, enthusiastic consent is mandatory daw every time. Hindi lang yung sabihin natin na, yung phrases like, she was asking for it, hiningi niya yun eh. Or kaya, boys will be boys. Lalaki kasi, ganun na siya talaga kasi. Hindi na natin mababago ang kanyang behavior. So, it's an attempt, no? It's a lame excuse to blur the lines around sexual consent or sexual harassment or misogynistic statement. It also places the blame on victims or excusing yung perpetrators from the crimes that they have committed. So, again, in consent, there are no blurred lines. And number 5, we also should learn the signs of abuse and how you can help. So marami kasing klase ng abuse, may mga physical at saka serious emotional effects. So kung concerned tayo about a friend na nakakaranas ng violence or they feel unsafe around someone, tingnan natin yung mga signs na ito and learn about the ways we can help them find safety and support. So, and if you think someone is abusing you, may help po na available, hindi po kayo nag-iisa. At kung kailangan nyo ng kausap, may mga trained advocates din at helplines. Yun nga, pwede kayong pumunta sa office po ni Ma'am Lorna, sa GAD office din, office ni Ma'am Rio. And then also, number 6 is pagpatuloy po natin yung conversation or even start one. Itong online forum na ito is one and I'm very grateful for this opportunity kasi yung violence against women and girls, it's a human rights violation na it's been perpetuated for decades. It's pervasive. It's not inevitable unless we stay silent. So kung tahimik lang po tayo, magpapatuloy pa rin siya talaga. So sana we will continue our solidarity. Let's show our we are one with the survivors and we stand in the fight for women's rights. Itong orange nga is a symbol. Sana nga you already updated your social profile media for the 18 days of activism here in the Philippines. So maraming mga tayo dyan. Sa Facebook for example, meron din sa Viber, nakita ko rin. And then also, we should stand against the rape culture. Kasi yung rape culture, it's a social environment na it allows sexual violence to be normalized or justified. At saka ito yung nagpapatuloy, no, the persistent gender inequalities and attitudes about gender and sexuality. So, it's yung pagsabi natin, pag name natin na that's rape culture or that's sexual harassment. So it's a first step na i-dismantle natin yung so-called rape culture. So every day, kasi it's a daily struggle, hindi lang 18 days of activism. Every day, we should have this opportunity to examine our own behaviors and beliefs and also our biases that permit rape culture to continue. So think about how we define ano yung masculine, ano yung feminine, and let's check also ourselves yung own biases natin at saka yung mga stereotypes. Yun. So, next is, kung sakali may mga women's organization, let's also continue to help them. They also need funds to continue what they are working on. Marami po tayong mga women's organization. Actually, in Davao, we also have Talikala, ganyan, Bubay, and other organizations as well. And then, number 9, hold each other accountable kasi yung violence, marami siyang klase and it can take many forms. Meron sa workplace, meron sa school, sa public spaces, yung catcalling, ganyan, inappropriate sexual comments, yung hi chicks. So, siguro, depende rin yun sa babae kung if she feels offended or if she feels, feeling niya beautiful siya. Pero, if one feels offended, wrong na talaga yun. Diba? So, we should also create a safer environment for everyone. Now, we can also challenge our peers to reflect on their own behavior and speaking up when someone crosses the line. Like, oops, ano yan? And we can also enlist the help of others if you don't feel safe. And as always, pakinggan po natin yung mga survivors natin at saka tingnan natin ano kaya yung kailangan nila na support. And also important na kanina pa lang pinag-usapan natin yung mga data. Ilan ba sila? From the PSA to the local data. we should demand more of this data kasi it also helps us monitor and track, and also helps us define our policies. So we also need to understand the issue kasi. Hindi lang yung tingin sa langit at bana-bana. At alam natin na yung gender-based violence talagang tumaas siya sa panahon ng COVID-19 at meron pang mga gaps dito sa itong gender-sensitive data collection. So we must call on our government also and other partners as well. Tumutulong din po kami na mag-gather ng mga data about this gender-based violence. So, for instance, kami rin sa Reach Health, we also launched this a digital campaign on familyligtas.ph. So, makita nyo po dito sa screen yung address sa Facebook. I-type nyo lang po yung familyligtas.ph. So, it's an online campaign. It seeks to build awareness on GBV and how one can seek help even during COVID-19. Kasi alam natin sa panahon ngayon na ang hirap talaga ng pinagdadaanan natin dahil sa pandemic. So, minsan, madalas ang minsan, normal din na nagagalit kasi nasa-stress or napagod, nalungkot, or pinanghinaan ng loob. Pero, hindi normal kung nananakit ka na sa bahay nyo or sinasaktan ka dahil nagalit yung tatay ba or nanay or kasino man. Ang tawag pa rin dyan ay gender-based violence. So, kung sino man na nakaranas ng GBV or VAUSI, dahil sa sa panahon ngayon, dahil lockdown in Davao City, we're back to, anong CQ na ba? Quarantine, GCQ, MGCQ. So, mas madalas talaga nangyayari itong mga cases na ito within the home. So, let's protect each other, protektahan po ang bawat isa. Gawin pong familyligtas ang pamilya. So, meron tayong mga hotline numbers kung saan kayo pwedeng mag-report or makausap. So, it's at the tip of your fingers in your phones. Pwede rin po kayong pumunta or kumontak sana sa PNP, DSWD, PAPCOM, or sa Commission on Human Rights, or sa pinakamalapit na VAUDES sa inyong lugar, yung CHO, we have mentioned it earlier, yung GAD office. So, marami pong mga ways that we can reach out if this case has happened. And let's also share this to others. At by the way, sino po yung nakapanood pala nung movie na Aladdin? Mahilig din ako manood kasi ng movie. So, kung napanood nyo si Aladdin, nakita nyo rin ito si Princess Jasmine, yung sa kanyang song. And dun sa last part ng song niya, ito yung lyrics ng kanta. So, yung kanta ni Princess Jasmine actually resonates about breaking age-old traditions and boundaries imposed on her. So, at least sa panahon ngayon, yung Disney na mga female characters, medyo nag-improve naman. Kesa yung the same old na they lived happily ever after. At saka the lead character, she was swept away